Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I am going to do a review on Cotman watercolors and also show you a couple of the more popular sets, what I have and what I recommend. And at the end of the video we will be doing a demo on this painting here, so make sure you stick around for that, or fast forward if you're only interested in the demo and you're not interested in the review. Please feel free to follow along with whatever paint you have, but today we're going to be talking about the Cotman, which is the student set from Winsor Newton. I find them to be a very reliable, high quality student set and very affordable too. So it's a great place for a lot of people to start off watercolors because you're getting a reliable product and it's not too expensive. And as you use up a color, you can always replace it with its artist's watercolor counterpart, which I think is nice. You can stay within the line if you want, or you can branch out to other brands of artist quality paints, or you can stick with Cotman if you're really happy with those. These are not the paints I started with because I started painting when I was really young, but these are ones that I have been painting with off and on for the last 20 years or so. So this is the first Cotman set I got. It's a sketcher box, and this is still widely sold, and you can even find it for under $20 online, places like Amazon and whatnot. This has been refilled many times by me, so I just want to let you know that some of these paints may not be Cotman in here anymore, but I wanted to show you the layout of this palette. It's a great little sketcher set. Some people even just buy this set for the case and they take out the pans and refill it with what they want for artist grade paints. But I would recommend starting with a set like this, and if you use up like the sap green, I'm not in love with the Cotman sap green, it is a little weak, so I refilled it with my M-gram sap green. I mean, you can, do what suits you the best. This kit comes with a little tiny brush. It's just just a little field brush. If you have this and a larger water brush, it's really great, and you just put the end of the brush into its cap and you have a long enough brush to paint with. You just have to be very careful when you put your brush back into the sleeve that you do not split the hairs. So don't just, I like twirl around and look and make sure there's no hair sticking back before I push it on there tightly closed. So that's the only thing to be concerned with about this brush. I don't use it that often. I'm not a very small brush painter, but it's really handy to have when you're out in the field. And you get 12 colors. It comes with a white. I took the white out and I put in some phthalo blue. My set came with cobalt blue and ultramarine blue for some reason. Now it's coming with a phthalo blue, or Winsor Newton's intense blue, I believe, and ultramarine, which is a much better combination. No black, which is nice, and you get a warm and cool of each of your primary now, and you get 2 greens. So your Viridian is super, it's actually like a phthalo green. It's super vibrant. So actually that might be intense green. It's a very vivid green, so if you took that and you added some yellow ochre to it, you could get what's more of a normal strength sap green. So you have a lot of options. There's nothing wrong with the set, and this is the set I teach with. So I do a library program, and we ordered these sets for my students in the library program because it was complete free to the community program, and I just knew that it was going to be a reliable paint. Now that said, I may have chosen the Lucas Studio set of 12 because I found those colors to be a little more intense, but the Cotmans are more transparent, so it's they're comparable. So if you're kind of wondering between those two, I think the Lucas colors are a little bit more intense, and the Cotmans are a little more transparent. It just depends on what is the most important value for you with your watercolors. Okay, so that is the first set I started with, and then I got the set. This is the American a big set, I guess you'd call it. This is the American version. And the thing I like about this, you get 24 half pans, 24 full pans. And the thing that I really like about this is that the American set includes cadmiums, real cadmiums and cobalt, and the European set does not. So that's, and I was just on Jerry's Artorama site yesterday, and they advertised this exact set right here. They had it on their sale for $55, regular like 90 something, and they said that it does have 4 genuine cadmiums and cobalt. So according to Jerry's Artorama, they're still selling this in the United States, or they still have some in stock anyway. And I really love this set. I took this set on vacation, did a ton of paintings with it, and I'm very pleased with it. I have refilled some of the set. I refilled the Purple Lake. I actually think I refilled it with Mauve from the Cotman line. I've refilled the Ultramarine Blue before, and I'm just about needing to refill the Burnt Sienna. Again, I've refilled the Crimson. So So yeah, it's gotten a lot of use, and I really love this set, and I love the big mixing areas, and I love that there's space for a water brush or just a regular brush here, which is really handy. And this is what they look like all swatched out. And I actually had thrown a couple small half pans and taken out the white for a trip, so that's why those two are in there. But good colors, very very consistent quality between the colors, but they all have the unique characteristics, which is something you don't see in student paints a lot. Like the ultramarine blue is very granular, just what you would expect. Some colors are more opaque because of the minerals that they're using, and some are more transparent. So you are getting the feel of the actual pigments in a paint like you do when you're using artist quality paint. A lot of studio or student sets, like the Lucas set even, their colors feel very similar throughout the line, like you don't get those unique characteristics and textures, and you still do with a Cotman, in my opinion. And this is just my opinion, so take it for what you will. And then the British set, which I just ordered because it was, I saw it on Amazon, the American Amazon. It was shipped to me from a seller in the UK, but this was $48, and you get 45 half pans. So the American set, you actually get more physical paint because you're getting 24 full pans, which is equivalent to 48 half pans. There's only 40 colors in the range, so you get 5 duplicates. And the colors they duplicated were alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, and I'm happy with those 3 colors. They also duplicate ivory black and Chinese white, which I'm not too crazy about, but you know, it is what it is. And I think there's a way to work with every color. Like ivory black happens to be a very granulating black, so something you could add to a color to get force that granulation, which is something that's interesting. And what I did, and this was this was a suggestion, or a warning from a viewer, and I'm so afraid I'm going to mispronounce her name. Afke is her name, I believe, and I apologize, I'm mispronouncing your name. But she had sent me a photo where she had cut out all of her labels and taped them to a paper and then swatched them out, and I thought that was just a fantastic idea because I wanted the information of the pigments used and the permanence, and that was right on the label. So I just cut them out, taped them down, and swatched underneath it, and then I went in with a wet brush. And this is my Fabriano Studio paper. It's the best cheap paper there is, I think, but it does have its limitations. It's 20 or 25% cotton, but it's like short fiber cotton. It's like the end of the barrel cotton, I think. And when you do scrub, you will pill the paper eventually. It doesn't take much to pill the paper, so I will warn you there. But I was able to lift out of most of these colors, even the more staining ones, which is good information to have, because if I know I want to do like a flower and I want to do a lot of glazing, then this is not going to be the best paint for that because I might lift up the color underneath by accident. However, if I'm doing a painting like an illustration for a client that's going to be reproduced, and I might need to correct things because a client might have changes, and this is a much better paint for me to use because I can scrub it away, blot it off, and repaint something if I need to. So knowing if your paint is liftable, what colors are liftable, what colors are staining, are extremely important. And I can also see the granulation in certain colors. And then this on the label says the information of what pigments were used. Like this indigo uses PBK 7, pigment black 7, which is it's not ivory black, but it's a granulating black. It's got, actually it might not be granulating because it's got PB29, which is ultramarine blue, which is very granulating, and PB15, which is phthalo blue, I think, which is a very stainy blue. It's used in, yeah, the phthalo blue, intense blue, phthalo blue. So it's good to have that information there right at my fingertips, so I like having this. And I also saved the little swatch that came in the kit, and I wrote down the pigment numbers while I was at it, just so I would have that if I threw away my wrappers. I didn't know about saving the wrappers until after I'd already gone through the trouble of writing them down here. But I'm the type of person that when I write things down, it becomes permanent in my mind. If I read it, it's not permanent until I write it down. It's just it's a trick. I used to use it for studying too. But if I write it down, I remember it. That's why I write things in a planner as opposed to using a digital planner. So those are all my little color swatches. And the other way you can get these paints is also in tubes. I don't have a ton of tubes. I just have some because when I teach, I'll refill the students' palettes with the Cotman, and I don't have too many left. And these are all the old style. When I used to teach at a senior center, I used to get them in these 21 milliliter tubes, and they're not bad. I'm not crazy about the lemon yellow, which is nickel titanate, which is pretty common. It just seems like a very weak yellow to me. I did some pretty mixes though. It's nice if you want a subtle look. And what I did here was I took my tube colors and I added water and I swatched them out, and then I did some mixing, and I do like this this gray. This would be pretty for rocks or something, I think. Excuse me. That was cobalt blue, mauve, and lemon, and it just gives you a very pretty gray. That was the lemon, yellow, and cadmium. I didn't have my cadmium yellow. I must have used that up, but I did mix these out just to get some pretty colors. The Payne's gray, I mixed it with the yellow ochre and did get an interesting granulating murky green. I just was playing with those colors, and they are pretty muted because I added quite a bit of water to them, but I also prefer the pans, I would say, in the Cotman line versus the tubes. You can let them dry in your palette. There may be some cracking, not crazy cracking like other student brands, but you could always put a drop of glycerin and stir it in if you're worried about cracking problems. But there, this is another tip too. At the Dollar Tree, you can get these plates, or you can get them anywhere. You probably have plates in your cupboard. Just if you use them for art, I really would not use them for food again. But if you squirt the color up here on the edge, and I did that with my Daniel Smith colors too. I'm still working on those little dabs that I put out when I first reviewed them. You put them up there, and then when you mix your colors, the wash falls down to the center, and it keeps your little dabs of paint clear. And this is just really good if you're testing out a color and you don't know if you want to put it in your permanent palette yet, or you're just doing, you just want to have the colors up for one particular painting and work right from the tubes or whatnot. But this is a great option. These were $1 at the Dollar Tree, so I'm very happy with that. And you can stack them up. Like when I stack these up, only the middles are touching. The lip on the bottom is touching. I don't know if you can see, but it's not touching the paint. So you could actually stack a few of these up with different palettes going, and kind of minimize your space. So what I'm going to do is show you how to paint this. And we're going to use the palette that I use, which is this palette. Now, something that that I would recommend when you're using these Cotman paints or a student grade paint is you may wish to use a synthetic brush rather than like a brush like this. It's meant to mimic natural animal hair, because it's not going to pick up as much water and you'll get more pigment. So if you're finding that your colors are a little too washy, that's a way to get around it. So I'm just going to go right ahead in with my paints. I'm going to start with some, well, you want me to, I'll sketch it on. That might help you guys at home a little bit. I'll sketch it darker than I normally would. I'm going to start with a triangle with a rounded bottom. Okay, then we're going to make a little line out from it, and we're going to bring it down so we have this like slice. We have a three-dimensional triangle. Then we're going to do back here, we're going to do a slightly curved line, a line down, and we're going to curve it back. That's the bottom of the rind. And now we got foreshortening happening because this is laying down. We're not seeing the full length of it like we are in this, because this is standing up and we're looking right at it. So this isn't going to be as tall as that. We're going to have, because yeah, that's not going to be that tall because it's going to be foreshortened because our eyes are going to look across it. So what we're going to do is make this much shorter than the other one. Okay, and that's all there is to it. Just a few lines, guys. Nothing too crazy. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to wet the paper. And I actually will use this brush for wetting it because it is really juicy. And we're just going to wet this front slice here. And I'm not going all the way to the bottom of the rind. You'll see why in a second. And then I'm going to use my little round brush. This is a number 6 round. Use whatever, anything in that ballpark. I'm going to grab some sap green. I always like to bring it out onto my palette first so that I don't get any globs. And see, I'm just painting along the edge, and when it grabs that wet paint, it is going to just it's just going to wick up a little bit, and that's what I want. I don't want a ton of color there. I just want it to kind of wick up so I get that very natural look. And feel free to maximize your screen if you're watching this on your computer at home. Now I'm just going to add some color and just kind of let it be very mottled. So you can see this color flows. And this is also that Fabriano Studio paper, that really inexpensive paper I was telling you about. So you don't need to have like crazy expensive paper. You can see this is flowing. Although my friend Steve Mitchell from The Mind of Watercolor, fantastic YouTuber, we've gotten a little debate about cheap versus expensive paper, and I'm like, practice on the cheap stuff, save the good stuff. But he's like, you're an experienced painter, Lindsay, you've been painting for a long time. Beginners are gonna have a hard time with lower quality paper. So that is something to consider. I didn't really consider that because, you know, I use whatever. I'll paint on the back of a paper plate if I have to. So that was a good point, and I do give him props for that. Now on this one, on this rind, I'm going to go in dry, and I'm going to leave a gap between that rind and the slice right in front of it. Just like that. I used some Viridian in that one, and it really is not a good watermelon color, so I am not going to do that in this one. Okay, I want that kind of model. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of ultramarine blue. I do love the Cotman ultramarine blue. Actually, most paint companies, most even student grade paints do ultramarine, right? The pigment, that PB29, I think it is, that must be a fairly inexpensive color because most companies seem to do that all right. And I'm just kind of putting in some striation in there. And then I think I'll grab a little bit of, I like the Cad Yellow Light versus Lemon personally, but you can use lemon, any sort of cool yellow, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that in there. Now I can grab a little bit of this darker green and just kind of trace the outline of that just to give that really more green slice that we can see of the rind on the bottom. Now I'm going to leave this gap between the rind and the flesh of this watermelon up here because I don't want the colors to run together. We got a really soft blend there, which worked out really well, but I think up here everything's too close because it's foreshortened that our colors would blend together. So again, we're going to go with our alizarin crimson, and we're just going to add it in there and let it flow. Isn't that pretty? All right, so now I'm going to work on a shadow. I just have to be really careful around that rind that I don't mess it up, that I don't get into it. So I'm just wetting my paper there. And now I am going to make my gray, and I'm going to use ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Now another thing you're going to learn when you study your colors is that there are several reddish browns that use pigment, or single pigment, that use PR101, Pigment Red 101. That's what burnt sienna is made out of a lot of the time. Sometimes you see PRB7 for burnt sienna, I'm not sure why, but usually it's PR101, and it's a very reddish brown. So you may say, well gee, I don't have burnt sienna, or I just ran out of burnt sienna, what can I use instead? And then you can grab one of those other colors. You will have to alter it a little bit, like you might need a little bit more blue to get it to go to gray, or what have you, but you can work with it if you know what the pigments are. If you're a beginner, don't stress yourself out about it, just be aware of them, and you know, as your brain allows, add to that knowledge. Don't get yourself too worked up about it though if you're a beginner. And I'm just adding that color closer to the watermelon and letting it kind of flood out for my background. There we go. Like I might have used light red in that because that looks more purpley to me. Maybe I did use that instead of the burnt sienna. I forget. Alright, that's pretty dry, so now we're going to glaze over. And I'm just going to use the alizarin crimson again. And I'm just going to make some squiggly lines. Look, I'm using the whole side of my brush and just kind of like scribbling. See that? Now I want this side to be a little more shadowed, so I'm going to take a little ultramarine blue and make this a little bit cooler in color so it's more shadowed. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Let's add a little bit of water to that. That's a little too dark. Yep, we need much more water and maybe a little more red. Again, limited palette. It's always, your paintings are going to look better if you stick with a limited palette. I think that's when some things tend to look a little bit amateurish, is when you get too many colors going. And then I might put a little bit of that in here because that looks a little weird having that much shadow over here and not so much over here. So maybe I'll just put some areas where I'll put a seed in so they have a little shadowed area to be in. And then I'm going to add some of this color over here. And maybe a little more fresh, bright red as well. Now I'm going to let this dry and we'll come back to add the final touches. Now that this is dry, to add my final touches, I'm going to mix up some nice dark, almost black, and I'm going to do that with my ultramarine blue. And you want to get a lot of pigment, not a lot of water here. And my burnt sienna. That's going to make a nice, rich, deep black. And I'm going to paint on a couple of seeds. Just can kind of press my brush and lift it up. And I'm just going to put them where I put little darker areas, or where I feel like it needs something. And then I think I might put a little bit more darker green in the rind there. Just want to get a little bit of sap green on its own. Just add a little bit more to that. I thought that was a little bit weak, but I thought that was way too blue because I used some viridian in there. And I think I want a little bit more up there too. Now let's blast that real quick with the dryer, and I'm going to show you a little trick. There we go. Now a little trick that I have that's sometimes fun to do is I'll take a white gel pen, excuse me, pardon me, and I will put just a little highlight on some of these. It's just a fun way to get that little glimmer if you don't feel like masking, or you have a little afterthought where maybe you didn't realize you wanted a highlight before. And there you have it, a very quick and simple little painting you can do with your watercolors, either the Cotman set or whatever set you have at home. I think this would be really sweet on a little greeting card or postcard you can mail to somebody. And don't forget to sign your name. Here you can see the pretty backwashes and granulations from the ultramarine blue. It's just, that's what I love about watercolor. It's always a new surprise every time you do a painting. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, and I just think it's beautiful and a fun medium, and you don't have to have the most expensive paints to create beautiful works of art. And this is what the Cotman paints will do for you. This is not sponsored. I've used them for a long time, and I think they're really worth the money and a great place to start if you're beginning watercoloring. So thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up and share this video with your friends if they would like to see it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.